Hey guys, in this video, I'll be taking you through a recent photo shoot we did with Molly, a young actor who was just helping me try some things out in exchange for some photos. Actors always need new photos, so that worked out really well. One of the things that I wanted to do was to try out a new used Sony 85mm 1.8 lens that I'd picked up from Adorama. I picked this up for under $450 and I wanted to see what kind of results I could get from it. My previous Sony 85 was the high-end 1.4 G Master. But lots of people claim that the 1.8 is better in some ways. I was also excited to experiment with the Westcott lighting system, which I had only used once before this shoot. I brought along a couple of Westcott FJ400s, an FJ82, and of course the FJ X3 trigger. All right, so let's jump into the shoot and see what we were able to create. Okay, so for look number one, we've got some very basic headshots. Now, I try to leave most of the posing up to the subject. Let's take a look at some of these here. You can see as we go along, we're establishing some rapport. Now these, most of these kinds of shoots I do pretty quickly, so I don't have a lot of time. This right here is my final edit on this photo once I took it into Photoshop and brought it back, but it started out somewhere around here, and you can see the difference, a slight difference. Most of that difference is going to be in the skin. You can see here where we've got it pretty nicely cleaned up. And as we move out to here, this is what it originally looked like. I think I did some frequency separation work here, which I don't do a lot of, but when I do it, I try to do it right. Now the lighting on this, we're using one Westcott FJ400 at 1/8 power. Our modifier is an Impact Luxbanks Duo, probably a 39-inch softbox there. I don't have the exact measurements of that, but that's my best guess. And the reflector that we're using is about the same size as the face of the softbox. It's about 40 inches or so. My camera settings for this are ISO 100 at f8 on the lens and 1/250th of a second. Now I am using that 85mm that we talked about earlier. Now these exposure settings and the light power used together with the distance from the light to the background, gave us the background exposure that you see here. What that actual wall is, we're shooting against a cyc wall, and it's white, but because of the distance from the light to that wall, you get a nice gray effect. As for the lens sharpness and detail, I was really pleased. I think if you look at this, you can see we've got some really nice detail. Let's just zoom in a little bit more. So this was at some distance, and again f8, and I think it looks really good. And you can even see here as we start losing focus here. So it's even at this distance, it's a pretty nice lock on the eyes and slightly going out of focus as you move farther away. I think this may be my favorite one of this set. All right, so for look number two, I was going for some long shots. Wanted to see what we could do with that lens with full length shots. I wanted to bring in some side lighting, so I hit the wall with another strobe. So what I'm using here, two Westcott FJ400s for this shot. My key is at 1/4 power because I've moved it slightly farther away so that I can get more coverage. This isn't just a head and shoulder shot now, so I had to move it farther away and out of frame a little bit. And now that second light is, you could consider it a background light or a side bounce light, because what I'm actually doing is I'm hitting, this is a cyc wall again, so it's kind of an L-shaped background, and I'm hitting that wall to the model's left, camera right, hitting that wall, and a lot of that light is bouncing back, not just towards her, but to the wall behind her. So I've got this really nice white background effect. That light, that second light, is at 1/2 power or so. I mean, that varied. It could have been a little bit brighter at times, maybe a little bit less bright, but generally about 1/2 power. The modifier for the key light is the same as before, and I didn't have a modifier on that second light. I think this turned out really well. Now my camera settings are again ISO 100 at 1/250th of a second, but this time for whatever reason, I don't know exactly how this happened. This is just a slip on my part. I am shooting at f7.1. I usually like to shoot at just regular f-stops, not fractional f-stops. So it's either going to be f5.6 or f8. So this should have been shot at f8, but I shot it for whatever reason at f7.1. Again, my light settings for the key changed because I moved that light farther away for the longer shots. The brighter white background was this way because the background combo light is helping to light that background. And let's see what the final selections are as far as I'm concerned. I really like this one, but you know, this one looks okay. If you get in a situation where your light is showing up, maybe you've got you're pulling back this far and you do have a light showing up somewhere in the frame, you can always clone that out in Photoshop because Photoshop is just that smart these days. Anyway, so we've got some closer up ones from the same thing here. Some nice attitude there, just different looks here. Now you can see right here, I've got that light just way too hot. Probably don't want it to overpower like this. So, okay, favorite out of this one, I would say for attitude, maybe that. I like this. I think this is pretty nice. And I do really like the long shots. This is just a clean picture right here. Okay, moving on to look number 3. This setup is what I use a lot. I used to use it a lot for boudoir photography. But it's just a cool look. It's very, very easy to do. This gives you a very glamorous, dramatic look. And I thought this would be a good way to try out the Westcott FJ400 because I normally use a simple speed light for this type of shot. And usually I have the light on a stand, no modifier. The light's just above the subject's head. In this case, I'm just hand holding the light for a few quick shots. Now, when you do a shot like this, the pictures are going to come out a little hot spotted. In other words, there's going to be a brighter light right on the subject and it's going to drop off pretty quickly towards the edges, and that's because you've got the light so close and it's just a flash. There's no modifier, nothing to spread the light around. But even so, even with a look like this, I almost always give it some vignetting to give it a more mysterious look, like it was done in a very small space or a dark room. Now my lighting here is again, I'm using the FJ400. I don't have the power setting, but I believe it's about 1/16 power. That would be normal for a flash this size for what I'm doing here. Camera settings are ISO 100, 1/250th of a second, and I'm using f3.5. I'm not using the 85 millimeter on this. I'm using a kit lens at 22 millimeters. That's the focal length. So my favorite shot out of this set, and it's interesting because I do not shoot a lot of pictures. You'd think I'd shoot 50, 75, 100 shots per look, and I don't. I may shoot 10 sometimes. This might be my favorite one. This is a pretty good one. Let's just see, even with that kit lens, look at the sharpness here. It does the job, Don't let people tell you that a kit lens isn't good enough, because it can do the job. I mean, they do have their limitations. That's certain things that you're not going to be happy with a kit lens as far as a look of your shots, and it is going to let you down sometimes with sharpness, but sometimes it'll do the job. All right, now look number 4. Took very few of these, and I was specifically going for a femme fatale look, sort of a B-movie, 70s kind of lighting for a B-movie. And lots of times, I want to do this. I'm going to use hard, dramatic lighting because in reality, if you're trying to do something creative, you don't have to just necessarily say, well, I only use soft light. I want everything to look beautiful and soft all the time. Sometimes you're going for a specific look. The direction here was actually, I told Molly that I wanted this kind of look. I said, you've been up to something, maybe you've committed a crime, one of those, like I said, femme fatale kind of B-movie things. So she played the part, and the lighting It originally started off with the two Westcott FJ400s, but I ended up just pulling the second light so that I would just have the one dramatic light hitting her. No modifier. My power is 132 unmodified, like I said. The camera settings, we wanted the background to go out of focus, so I'm using the 85 millimeter here, and I'm using it at f2.8, so hence the much lower power setting. The ISO is 100 and the shutter speed is the typical 1/250th of a second. Now the C-stands that I was using did not go low enough for that somewhat underlighting look that I was going for, so I used an Apple box and just placed the light directly on top of the Apple box. Just set it on there and pointed the light at Molly. So I think this is my final selection, my number one choice out of this particular look. Okay, let's go to look number 5. We're just about done, and I said, you know, this studio has a cool little makeup table in a side room, and I thought we'd try that for a final set of shots. Now, the Westcott FJ400 was employed here again. I pointed it at the wall, not at my subject, basically taking advantage of bounce lighting. And the power on the light was, this is a very small room, the power was 1/64th and sometimes 1/32nd. I shot at f4 with the 85 millimeter. We used a mirror, and notice how the bounced light reflecting off of the one side wall is lighting both Molly's face in the mirror, but also from behind for this interesting look. Molly also liked these shots. I don't remember what her choice was, but I think my choice, if I had to pick one of these, and this was not my favorite set of the shoot, I'd say this one. I'd say I'd select this one as my choice. All right, so that's the 5 looks we got from one model, one outfit, and some nice lights to work with. I was pretty happy with the way that the lens performed. I noticed some really good sharp detail, and you know, after the shoot, I was convinced that I could count on the 85 1.8 for any shoot that I'd be doing in the future. Hey, I hope you enjoyed reviewing this photo shoot with me. Subscribe, like, and comment below. Also check out the link to my guide, Ed Vorosky's Guide to Flash Photography, in the video description. There's also info about the gear I use there in the description. All right, so that's about it for today. I'll see you next time.